When you set about bringing mindfulness in some kind of disciplined way into your life as a love affair with the unfolding of life itself, and an experiment in making sure that you're not missing your moments or driving through your moments to get to better moments or constantly caught up in reactivity. It's helpful to keep certain elements in mind. So these factors that are sometimes called attitudinal factors, they really set the stage for taking your seat or taking a stand in the present moment. So they, in some sense, really round out the practice and are essential to the practice. They're not things that you force on yourself, but rather that you just keep in mind, so to speak. Or maybe it would be even more appropriate to say, keep in heart. So the first of these is non-judging. And as I've said, non-judging does not mean that you won't be judging. It means that in some sense you'll become really mindful of how judging you and I and all of us are constantly. And we won't judge that judging. But the awareness of the judging and the intention to not be caught by it is in itself a kind of beautiful and very gentle practice of, in some sense, caring enough about yourself and whatever circumstances you find yourself in to not immediately collapse and contract around liking and disliking, wanting or not wanting, pushing away or driving towards. Because really, we're prisoners of our own judgments when it comes down to it, because it reduces our possibilities for responding to challenging situations instead of reacting mindlessly, more or less, habitually, every time certain things come up and we contract into a view that may not be the whole story, the whole view. So this is actually the heart of meditative practice. And this is a fundamental, I don't even want to call it a skill because then it just sounds too pedestrian or mundane. It's an adventure. It's part of the adventure of seeing that we don't have to be imprisoned by our own likes and dislikes. And in fact, that we can liberate ourselves from our unconscious attachment to our likes and dislikes and our wants and our fears. And this then just seamlessly integrates, as do all these other factors, and many more besides, into the practice itself. The second of these attitudinal factors, as they're unfolded in full catastrophe living at least, is the quality of patience. And the beauty of keeping patience even as a possibility in mind, not some kind of ideal, but just the possibility in mind, is that we immediately become aware of how impatient we are and how at times we want to get to an end result and we'll drive through whatever is between us and that end result. And so we kind of forcing ourselves to get out of the present moment because we're anticipating some better present moment in the future. And this is, in some sense, unwise and creates damage sometimes because other people have to live with your impatience and it has an aggressive element to it sometimes. The victims, let's say, of our impatience are often the people that we live with and love the most, or people that we work with, and might actually feel that a steady diet of my impatience is in some sense really disregarding, if not abusive. So impatience isn't just something that you benefit from recognizing and then cultivating patience in yourself, but other people around you will benefit from it enormously as well. Now, it doesn't mean you have to be satisfied with things as they are. Of course, we all want change in a direction that's truly transformational, beneficial, and healing. But as the old Zen sayings goes, you can't push the river. And it's unwise to kind of hurry yourself up to get someplace and thereby forget that there's no place to go, nothing to do, and no special something that we're after. So patience as a quality that we could cultivate is even more important now as we move deeper and deeper into the digital world and our seductions and addictions around our devices. And so we have become a kind of click-attached society where everything that's presented to us on our phones or on our laptops is often what's described as clickbait. It's out there hunting for you, looking for you to want something. That kind of clickbait and likes on Facebook and things like that actually trigger neuronal connections in the brain that stimulate the release of dopamine, which is generates a very, very satisfying feeling for one instant, that you get this dopamine hit of satisfaction because somebody gave me a thumbs up on Facebook, a like on Facebook. And I said something and someone else liked it. And that lasts a fraction of a second, that feeling of satisfaction. And then guess what? We want more. Only one person liked it, and we start to sort of survey the landscape. And then we get seriously not only impatient, but it's an element of actually addiction that we may not be aware of. So patience actually cultivates a certain kind of immunity to this kind of thing because you recognize the impulse to actually want to get something else, and you can slow yourself down. So throughout the course of the day, mindfulness of how impatient we are actually helps us to cultivate its opposite. So you're not trying to force yourself to be patient under certain circumstances, but more we're willing to look at those moments where we really get caught and we really fall into our own kind of constantly accelerating intention to get some result that then leads to the next result, and the next result, and the next result, and we're never actually satisfied. This will all become extremely important in sitting because the interesting thing about sitting meditation or any other form of meditation is that you actually bring your mind with you. And so you sit down with every intention to be like a calm, happy, sort of deeply insightful person. And then this stuff starts to happen, almost as if you have your phone in there with you, in your brain. And it's one thing after another. And you can get seduced by that, as we've been seeing. And here again, patience would be one lens that you could bring to this. There are many others that would remind you to, hey, slow down. You don't actually need to get anywhere else. In fact, the exact opposite is what we're cultivating here. How about at least reminding yourself that it might be valuable to be here since you already are. Another factor, the attitudinal factor in mindfulness is what Suzuki Roshi, this wonderful Japanese Zen master, one of the major people responsible for bringing the Chan Zen tradition to America, is famous for having said, in the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities. In the expert's mind, there are few. We really need to cultivate beginner's mind because everything that we know, in some sense, being a big expert about every subject whatsoever, actually prevents us from seeing what's here, because we already see it through our lenses of, I know what that is, I know what that is, I know what that is, I get that, I know who that is. And actually, you may not. Those are just your projections or your thoughts or your constructions, mind constructions, narrative stories. We're just continually generating stories centered around, guess who, the personal pronoun, I, me, and what I know, and what I understand, and what I like, and what I don't like. So beginner's mind is just reminding you, hey, chill out a bit, don't know so much. You don't actually know as much as you think. And maybe you know all sorts of things that you have no idea that you know, because your thinking is dominating other aspects of your native intelligences, of which there are many. So beginner's mind is just a beautiful thing to keep in mind from time to time. Every time you take your seat, it's like, for the first time, it's like, now the big expert is taking his seat or her seat on the meditation cushion, and I know what this meditation is all about. And it's like, you don't know anything. And who's even claiming to know that? So beginner's mind is more like don't know mind. Sung San Sansanim, this Korean Zen master, taught this what am I practice, and he taught it in the following way, and this is really very akin to beginner's mind. So he'd sit up straight and he'd get a quizzical look on his face and he'd say, what am I? And he's acting this out. He's like saying, this is the way you should practice. What am I? And then he'd get an even more quizzical look on his face and tilt his head a certain way, as if he was thinking about it, which is, he's teasing us as he's doing this. And he'd say, don't know. Don't know. And then he would say, you keep this don't know. Keep this don't know mind. Now, any great scientist, any scientist worth her salt, knows that what you know can be seriously problematic, because it can actually anchor you to the known in a way that becomes blinding to what is just over the horizon in the not known that you want to discover. The new, the something nobody's seen before. And sometimes our ideas and opinions can actually be imprisoning, or we become experts and we know too much. And very often someone will win the Nobel Prize for some profoundly insightful discovery. And there were always people around saying, why didn't I see that after the fact? And it's a really interesting question to ask yourself, because sometimes these things, while they're not trivial or just totally obvious, they actually, maybe these kinds of insights might be more accessible if we don't know so much, if we get out from under all of the weight of our knowing, and the stories and constructs we build that prevent us from seeing the holes, H-O-L-E-S, the places where, like, maybe there's a kink here or a chink in the armor and we don't know what this is. So all great scientists know the power of not knowing. But the beginner's mind is absolutely essential, not just in scientific discovery or in artistic expression, but in the actual unfolding of everyday life, in the family, at work, and on your meditation cushion. Another of these attitudinal foundations is trust. Trust in what? Well, how about trust in your own trustworthiness? Trust in your intention to live the life that's yours to live, to be 100% authentic, as best you can. And trust is a capacity that we all have to actually be at home and allow this moment to be as it is, and to have it be trustworthy, even if it's scary. And so that doesn't mean that you're going to sort of naively walk into very harmful situations because you're so trusting. I mean, you have to be aware of when it's time not to be trusting, okay, and trust that. So to bring trust into the equation is to kind of really remind ourselves that, well, there's a lot that we can actually trust. Like we can trust that, our breath is moving in the body. That's, for now, trustworthy. That our feet will carry us. That our heart will continue to beat through the night. That our eyes actually function. All these things we never think about at all, but they actually can remind us of how much is going on in any particular moment that's really reliable, that's really trustworthy. And the most important element of this is whether your heart is trustworthy. And the only way I know for your heart to be trustworthy, for my heart to be trustworthy, is to trust myself, to trust that it could be, if I'm paying attention to all the ways that I might betray my own trust or other people's trust. So you can see that mindfulness will function on a lot of different levels here, so that these are not kind of cliches that we talk about, like how important it is to be trusting or trustworthy, but they're really sources of deep embodied insight about how to be in wise relationship with experience unfolding inwardly and outwardly. And that, of course, is the practice of mindfulness, what mindfulness is all about. Another of these factors is called non-striving, and this is certainly one that on its face can sound really anti-American, anti-go-getter, anti-get the result. Because non-striving really hinges around recognizing this deep non-dual insight about reality. And that is that fundamentally in the unfolding of our moments and in the meditation practice as well, which is a reflection of the unfolding of all our moments, that there is no place to go, nothing to do, and nothing to attain. When you adopt that perspective, everything is attainable instantly. So there's plenty of paradox here, and that paradox is actually like a vortex of potential insight, of realization, of embodied clarity. But it can't translate into thought. And thinking will never bring it to the fore. So non-striving is really deeply related to trust, that it's really a reminder that you can probably get more work done. I've had this experience many times, and better work by not being attached to the outcome and striving to get the thing done, but to simply take care of it and honor what's required to make sure every piece of it has integrity, and it'll get done when it gets done. Now, of course, we have to work with the real world and deadlines and everything else, but just bringing that to the fore in your own consciousness actually can help you get things done a lot faster. It turns out that non-striving really is useful when you're very, very goal-oriented. And one way you can see that is in professional sports. And professional sports has taken to mindfulness in various sports, some more than others, over the past 10 or 15 years than ever before. And professional athletes are like incredibly goal-oriented, and more than goal-oriented. They don't just want to score goals or baskets. They want to win, okay? So you could say they would be attached to the outcome of winning. But they also understand that when you're too attached to the outcome of winning, paradoxically, you can get in your own way and lose the game because the mind wasn't clear. And so what happens on the court or on the playing field also can go south in a second. So if, Michael Jordan and LeBron James and Steph Curry can practice mindfulness, and there aren't any more competitive people that I know on the planet, then maybe we should rethink this whole question about how, non-striving will take the hunger out of my desire to win. It doesn't mean that you become a passive person who never gets anything done. I mean, I know thousands of people out there who are, highly accomplished people in every domain of life who are all meditating, and no one feels, the meditation is taking the edge off of me. Quite the opposite. Many of them will say, that's where my competitive edge comes from. I've got this other profound resource to tap into that's like an oxygen line straight into the heart. So acceptance is another one of these attitudinal factors. So let's think about acceptance for a moment. So acceptance really means seeing the actuality of things and recognizing and accepting that they're like this. Acceptance doesn't mean you can't work to change them. If I'm just going to accept, being a witness to murder or social injustice of any kind. Acceptance doesn't mean, it's not my business, not me, not my family. So that acceptance doesn't mean like I just accept everything the way it is. It means that acceptance means seeing clearly what the reality is and letting it actually register with you. Okay, then you've accepted it, which means you've recognized maybe the unacceptable at times. And then the question is, how am I going to be in wise relationship with what's intolerable, what needs to be changed? So it has nothing to do with passive resignation. But a lot of people confound the two and they think, when they talk about acceptance, they just mean like, you give up your spine and you just passively resign yourself to these forces that are bigger than you and you can't do anything. If that winds up being the case, humanity is really screwed. Okay, that we need the exact opposite at this moment in time. We need to see the actuality of what's going on in all its complexity and all its simplicity. And then that's the acceptance part, but no resignation whatsoever. It's just clear seeing and then action, acting, coming out of apprehending harm being done, for instance, and taking a stand, a principled stand, an ethical stand. So acceptance does not mean passive resignation, but it means a deep, insightful recognition of things as they are. And if you're the only one that sees the way things are and everybody else is saying it's somehow other way, trust yourself.